followed by Senator Young.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you know Julie Sugar. Okay, well, Julie came to meet with me to educate me on this issue long before the bill was drafted. And, you know, I thought about this every time I saw my 3-year-old granddaughter walking around with her tablet and her little reading screen to do her numbers, and I'm wondering how much exposure that she's getting, and she's 3. So by the time they get into that and get into the classroom, I can just imagine how many hours they've been exposed. And so everything you say is really real, especially in myopia. But I just also want to use this opportunity to welcome my primary care physician, Dr. Cynthia Boyd. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any idea how much time students spend on the devices in school at this point?
There are varying reports out there. Leslie might be able to speak to this. Some counties aren't actually sharing that information with parents, which itself is problematic. It varies really from school to school, but what we know is it's not the time per se right now, it's the daily use, and it's the habit that's part of the problem, and it's the lack of outdoor play. So understanding the risk has already been done by the medical community. I'm just a mom. Most of us, except for Cynthia and Dr. Duncan, are just moms. But what we're clamoring for is we know that there's a risk. DHMH is responsible for mitigating that risk, and that's all that we're asking to have done.
Well, I appreciate that. I was just wondering, though, a lot of these students have these devices at home as well. And all you're focusing on is the school, where I assume they're used for educational purposes as opposed to, I know my son and daughter-in-law really restrict the use of the devices on my grandchildren, but I know there's a lot of them use them in the evenings. Now, does this also apply to TVs, or is it mainly the portable devices?
Again, it's the doctors who need to tell us. We've used the phrase digital devices in anticipation of virtual reality, where the kids will be holding the cell phones right up against their face. And that itself is very frightening to me as a parent. The whiteboards, the doctors are going to tell us whether or not the television is having the same effect as the digital device. But I want to comment what's really exciting about this bill, and it is exciting. In your packet you have, like I said, experts from around the country are watching this. For the first time, the American Academy of Pediatrics has come out to comment on the classroom use. They never have before. We finally convinced them that the retina of that child does not distinguish between entertainment and education. So it is the exposure itself, regardless of the content, that we're after.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick statement and then a question that has nothing to do with the bill. First off, you made me self-conscious. I've been sitting up straighter since. Secondly, please don't sue the University of Maryland. They came up with the blue light on the phone.
Okay.
But you obviously have a good bill. I think it needs to be done. And I guess Senator Hershey either came up with a really good bill and or he's got some kind of influence at DHMH I don't have, because I've never submitted a bill to them or even said hello that they didn't give me a fiscal note that was out of when they don't want to do something, they really put a big note on it, and they don't have one on this, so congratulations. Ma Tai Tai, I'm just curious, the translation, I didn't get the tone, translation of your last name? Yeah, is it mother, to bother, horse, to scold, or just an interrogative question? Horse. Okay, thank you.
Can I make a sentence of just Ma's?
Yes, you can.
Yes, in Mandarin.
My Mandarin's slipping, but I still have some. Thank you.
You know, it says develop guidelines and procedures for the use of digital devices in public school classrooms. And again, I think people are in front of one type of screen much too long, so I agree with the concept. But I'm thinking of students who have smartphones, who every minute they get are looking at it. And over lunch, they're probably going to look at it. And when they change for gym, they're probably going to look at it. And if he turns their back, they're probably going to be looking at it. And that's probably the most used element. And I'm trying to figure out how we set a policy. I mean, many schools have tried to say you can't bring them into class. That was a policy, then that was reversed. In case there are emergencies and parents need to contact them. I'm not sure I want to sound like Senator Hershey, but I'm not sure how the government's going to monitor this and set clear guidelines when it's been such a battle. I can tell you there are teachers who are always saying, put your phone away, stop texting. And I'm trying to figure out how this law is going to change that.
Could I comment?
Sure, absolutely. It's a question.
Cell phones, I think, are going to be a battle for families and communities and schools for a long time. What we're talking about here in Queen Anne's County, for instance, and I think again in Baltimore County, is when my son and daughter walks into school, they are required to turn on a computer, and that computer, that school device, that school equipment is required to be used throughout their day, most of the day for my kids. To answer your question, it varies, but for most of the day for my kids. And then again at night for homework. We can't necessarily regulate parenting. We can regulate the school equipment.
I want to think about some amendments to tighten this up. Because I think adding smartphones, it's very difficult. And if it's a school-directed use of a computer, laptop, or a small screen, whatever, for classwork, it might help the bill be a little more focused in things that the school system, in conjunction with the DHMH, can actually control. That's just a...
Mr. Chairman, if I could add, and as was mentioned earlier, we intentionally kept it a little bit broad by talking about digital devices. And I certainly agree with you, and Cindy said it best, this bill isn't there to regulate parenting. But I think if we were able to put these types of guidelines in place that happen at the school, that at least parents will then become more aware of it. I think this type of legislation and putting these guidelines in place will bring up the issue, as the Senator just said. This is an issue that's out there. Maybe parents, as a result of hearing that these types of guidelines are in place and we're limiting use, or we're making students get up out of their seat a little bit more, walk around the classroom once and sit back down, maybe those things will translate back to the House and help with the parenting, although not regulating the parenting.
Thank you, my Vice Chair. I know in Baltimore County what's been implemented in the schools in the county and how things are coming about where all kids are going to have a handheld device. And not looking at it this way, it really brings to mind that, there could be some serious, as you were saying, side effects that we don't want. And I thank you for bringing this to our attention. I mean, a lot of people, and computers are great. I mean, these devices are great. You learn so much. But at the same time, I guess in moderation, I guess you got to really use things where you don't destroy things. So I just want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.